Hello, all, and to keep up with the spirit of the declining content of this channel, um, this one's gonna be a ramble and a fucking half. But there's kind of some circumstances that have happened in the last 48 hours that's kind of inspired me to make this video, and so I actually want to pay homage to a friend of the channel, if you will. He actually told me he quite enjoyed my videos, so that's kind of why I wanted to at least mention my buddy who passed away in the last 2 days. So yeah, I just wanted to pay respect to him. He was a good guy, fun-loving guy. But yeah, so to get that out of the way and keep up with the spirit of the rambles, I guess. Um, you know, the reason why I kind of also brought it up is I was actually wanting to make a video like this, and so the idea that this kind of circumstance happened really, I don't know. It's like you kind of have to make the video now, don't you? And so yeah, I wanted to just kind of share some thoughts, and obviously say these are kind of like, hypothetical things, like, not everything's all, the ingredients aren't necessarily all here yet to, I don't know why I'm kind of like trying to defend myself here for this, but I kind of, there is some kind of takes where you kind of lay it out in a video and it's like, what the, like, fuck, man. You really gotta fucking come at it in a different kind of way, I suppose. And so, I wanted to kind of cover how we've been saying in the spirit of the channel how coronavirus is kind of being used as this accelerationism, if you will, of like self-sabotage economically. But not just that, there's the technological aspect of it, the innovation aspect of it. And one of those things, in addition to the commodification video that I made, would be the rise of like kind of like the Discord group or the Telegraph group. I actually don't have one, or is it Telegram? I don't even know. But I personally only use Discord. But I think you can see that the popularity in these things actually went up, like most things online, in the last year. But I kind of wanted to examine that more because I don't think that kind of patronage, if you will, of kind of almost forming your own kind of groups on this like cool little server, and you guys are doing your own thing and making your own rules, if you will, and you're kind of like centered around something, whether it's anime or sports or just being bros, I guess. Whatever the case may be, you're kind of almost forming a tribe, and this tribe, in my case, on like a game I play, this tribe doesn't have like time zones or any kind of like geographic features anymore. It's international. There's people who are down in like Aussie land and places like that, and there's I've even ran into a couple people in the East, like like Japan or whatever. In my game, that's pretty rare actually. So I know in other games it's like, well, fuck, that's like water is wet, but so I kind of wanted to, just lay that out about how I kind of think there will be more of this in the future, of this, kind of forming of your like technological tribesmanship that kind of just goes beyond just like these hobbies, but actually you guys are, becoming good friends, and just like we talked about in that sexual commodification video. that I'm gonna keep plugging. Uh, over half of relationships now start off online, right? And that's something that a lot of people, even in my demographic, which is only in our late 20s, we can't even grasp that, because the concept of e-dating is still kind of like, what about catfishing and things like that. It's that's starting to like go away even more now, as well, honestly, as we kind of push more identification and internet usage together. We're kind of getting more towards that internet ID card, if you will, the library card, just like the old days. Everything's the same, but so yeah, kind of brushing up on the eerie idea of when you have a friend passing away now. And it's not my first one, and I think a lot of people in my age group, sadly, has dealt with a lot of people not just dying in some kind of car accident or something like that, but heaven forbid violence too, but taking one's own life, suicide. And so I've kind of like questioned whether the experience of me being able to kind of like go on the internet and recapture these memories, and like in a way only the internet can display them now, like videos, and it has more to do with the accessibility, right? It's like kind of like the new of like these old like things like photographs, but not just that, it's like messaging, and someone could have like letters or whatever, but that's not really the same as, let's be honest, as going on there and being able to like see comments and things like that. And when you kind of see like dead celebrities, their social media, people just kind of go through there, and it's like kind of in this way that like it hadn't been like that before. Or there might be some kind of esoteric example of maybe some of the like Hindus, and how they kind of just like dropped off messaging in kind of this anonymous way. I could see something like that maybe being an example, but other than that, like, you really, I mean, obviously there comes the contrast of the fact that everything's penned to you in this scenario on the internet. Like all of these kind of things that you just, these minutiae that you just post ad nauseum, or pieces of yourself you're kind of putting out there through memes or whatever the case may be. Like, there's going to be a day where someone's going to probably look at the lens of that potentially. Things will die off and stuff like that, and you won't be able to see all this kind of materials, if you will. Obviously, let's not be stupid, but in spirit of that, there is, it's happening. There are people who are dying, and you're able to go through their internet kind of like, how they kind of like processed reality as it was happening through memetics, or maybe some of them, like I do, like I kind of just free write, like a little fucking basic bitch diary kind of, in a way. But I'm a writer, so it is what it is. But yeah, I think that's really interesting that death in and of itself is actually kind of presented online in this new way through social media that hasn't happened yet. And what comes with a kind of different perception of death, if you will, where I'm not endorsing this in any way too. There's kind of like a really spooky authoritarian kind of like aspect to it, that like you're kind of being observed almost like by this like Cosmo Daddy, if you will, I guess would be how you would put it. And you see that kind of metaphor in music and stuff. There's kind of the example of the internet being like a god, if you will. And yeah, so I think in addition to what I was kind of getting at, more maybe 5 minutes ago, is when I kind of look back at, my friends' pictures and posts and, you know, thoughts and ideas, kind of this canon way of his life, going back, or at least what he was able to share with us on social media. Um, there is kind of almost this, what I would consider the same kind of like religious experience that I had when I was kind of, you know, a bit of an agnostic as like a kind of Catholic school kid, right? That I've kind of brushed up on. But there's also like the negative aspect, and I didn't want to say that this is necessarily like an endorsement or like I'm saying hoorah or anything like that by any means. There's also the bad side of things, and I think I'm gonna make a video about this in the future too, about kind of like the art of red pilling someone, right? That's been a thing that used to get talked about a lot, where it's considered like an art to make someone find like this kind of like unnerving truth that kind of breaks up their worldview. But you chip away at something, maybe you deconstruct something. It's kind of just like what the postmodernists did. We're this is the problem with not being well read. Is the right does these kind of postmodern tactics, and that's not gonna get us to where they want. And so they're kind of trying to deconstruct at the liberal. And I in my personal experiences, I remember when I came across a really really old this is gonna be really cringy to admit, but it was one of those really really old like pro-atheism like argument like rationale videos back in the day. Like maybe I don't know, I was like a freshman or something in high school, and it was fucking wild, man. Like it was like one of those shitty react, kind of like blood sports and spirit that we used to see all the time, like maybe 2 years ago or something. But the old YouTube React kind of videos, and oh, it fucking broke me, man. Like literally, I got really depressed, and I was like, fuck, what's like life even about, or what's all this shit even for? And it was really dangerous. I can't stress enough how dangerous it really was to, ride the waves of these kind of like intellectual waves of the internet. I'm not saying that, there's problems with like kids being resentful when you don't let them be open, but I think philosophy and questions of the life as a kid when I was like in middle school and high school on YouTube fucked me up way worse than anything else on the internet ever did. So yeah, I think this kind of nihilistic meltdown in a way is a religious experience of its own, where I was online on the internet. I had this red pilled moment, if you will, where to my perception at the time, at least, I had my worldview shattered, and there was nothing there to kind of like put in its place. My my secular days had truly began, and then I started getting into Hitchens and started referring to myself as an atheist and all that kind of stuff. But at the time, but I mean, yeah, it fucking sucked though. I was miserable. I wasn't having a good time. And I'm not gonna say that because of my own experience, right? Because at the time my life wasn't particularly that great. I was also a really angsty teenager, very low status, had very little going for me. And I'm not saying that I'm not an atheist now necessarily. It's just I'm far more open to the idea that religion was actually a very or at least a more positive thing than I used to when I was like an anti-theist and all this stuff. There's a reason why I was actually looking at this the other day, but one of the great literary writers in the Enlightenment, Voltaire, just said that if there was no God, it would have been necessary to invent him. So it's kind of interesting how like one of the great rational thinkers of all time even said that, like, hey, kind of like the meta, the narrative, the good life, and the big man, if you will. He's really important, and even if he's not there, you should probably make one because you're gonna need one. And I could also sit here and do the arguments about how even like as an atheist or was an atheist, whatever you want to think of me as, I don't really refer to myself as anything right now. And I don't try to do that out of some like esoteric, like trying to be some like I don't know, pretentious asshole. I'm doing it because I'm just like genuinely like just not sure. It's just something that where I'm at right now. I just don't know where I stand, and I don't want to like latch on to some obscure term or some esoteric concept that really wouldn't be me. And I don't want to lie to myself. That's really important to me. That's one of the things that I consider part of the good life, and I know that's very religious in nature, and all these political concepts and stuff obviously comes from this time of tradition and religion, and in many ways is kind of a downsend, because ultimately, like, what I'm getting at is when I was, under atheism, it's not like that in and of itself doesn't become something. We always kind of famously would say, you can call me whatever the fuck you want, but it just comes to the fact that I just don't believe in God, and that's cool and all, but then that becomes actually its own like category, and it has its own significance in that there comes these kind of like traits and kind of narratives that get born out of that, where it's like, okay, you're also a utilitarian, you also tend to be an urbanite. There's actually a really, really good man, I want to give them credit, I can't remember who it was, but I saw someone the other day said, or I read or I saw in a video where they just said that or no, it wasn't man, I feel stupid if I don't remember who this was. Basically, because I feel like it was somebody else paraphrasing a thinker, and it's bothering me now. I want to say there's something along the lines of there's just no atheists in the countryside, just like there's no spiritual people in megapolitan areas, and I thought that was like really interesting, because I've noticed in myself I tend to want to kind of interact with nature more and be more I used to like really look down on my dad when I was like an academic, and how he loved fishing, and not saying that I didn't like it too or liked spending time with him to doing that, but I also had this kind of like, because my dad always has these ideas of living out in the country. That's like one of his big ambitions. Like he wants to get even further away from, we're already considered rural to 99% of the world anyway, but he wants to get even further, and you definitely can. And he has. He used to live in a more rural setting, obviously, as like most people who are, kind of older in the Midwest. But I noticed that as I get older, and I've kind of like shied away from these kind of like anti-theist ideas, if you will, and that kind of identity that comes with that. really began to notice that that's that kind of saying really reigns true, and that like I definitely like have a changing relationship with nature and how I interact with it, where I used to look at it with kind of disgust even, and now I look at it more in more of a beauty sense. And I think that's a really interesting way to look at nature in itself, and kind of this agrarian politics, where I think the people, the environmentalists, the people who really want to help, are getting stymied every step of the way by bureaus, by global capital, by these like subsidies and whatnot. And but more than that, just like the whole narratives that go with it. There's the kind of call to like locality or whatever is being looked down upon even on like the left-wing circles now, because as I've said before, I kind of see them just more as a controlled opposition group at this point. So I think real environmentalism is done on this kind of like province people politic I've been talking about lately, and the kind of regionality calling and messaging, if we want to get serious about protecting the environment as is, like good drinking water as is, not these kind of abstract concepts that may or may not work out, and has a lot of political finagling with it. I mean, obviously we know with kind of like the Paris Accords, right? Like the West, everyone says they're gonna reduce carbon, but nobody cares about China, and China's like perhaps the worst offender of all. Like they care very little about like the environment, and it's kind of funny to see the West stumble on, or us just in general stumble on ourselves with we're like we're the one civilization, right, or one area of the globe, if you will, that's very, very concerned about their own perception of the environment. Nobody else is. So you gotta kind of take that for what it is, and not just self-wallow and realize that if you want to actually do carbon emissions in that way, you're gonna have to actually enforce them. But you can go into the whole thing about, I know there's a lot of different takes about carbon emissions in general, and I don't really want to go down that road, but I think that I was just really trying to make a little bit of a ramble video and a tribute to my friend, and set out maybe the prospect of this kind of what if of as death, and how we live our lives with the internet, and the kind of conditions that are coming with that, and how I think I saw on Facebook even you can make a kind of like tribute that you can set up for yourself on these social media, like at least on Facebook I think I saw. And I know Facebook's going down the shitter anyway, and I don't know why I entertain it still, just to keep in contact with people, but so like you can even build your own memorial now. And so I think that's kind of part of the spirit of this whole thing is, what if we actually started this is like where you begin that culture building process, or that civilizational new arrival of a new people process, is ultimately how they perceive and treat death. That's one of the greatest cultural questions of all. And so I think that's very interesting, that what if we have this kind of new line of thinking and new way of life that's more aware of this kind of perception, and one day I'm gonna leave behind this kind of like internet trail, and how do I want people to see it? I think people are already kind of doing that, but I'm not saying that it's necessarily a good thing, like I think I kind of said already, but it's happening, right? You can't just ignore it. And yeah, so I just wanted to kind of share some of my own experiences and how I think there is kind of this, religious experience that comes with the internet, and it, right, what you're already hearing it called internet culture and internet history. Not just internet history as like browsing history. We're starting to talk about internet history as in, movements of people and ideas and memetics that are actually like becoming like tall tales. So yeah, I think that's pretty fascinating. I hope you guys do too. But that'll do it for this one. Thanks for watching, and rest in peace, friend.